Okay, so today we're going to talk about syndromes and symptoms, and this is some of the more nitty-gritty Dwarf Fortress health calculation stuff. Here's why it's important. So I've been cheating with DF Hack quite a bit, and it turns out that when your dwarf has a syndrome, that actually affects the tokens that define that dwarf, and so you cannot use full heal, you cannot use remove stress all, you cannot use any of the commands that I usually use to just kind of cheat through anything. You'll see the footage from this map. So I generated a custom map using Advanced World Generation, and all I asked this time was I said, I don't want any neutral tiles. I want basically every tile, I want it to either be good or evil, and my intention there was I created a whole bunch of embarks that are, I can embark on the borderlands, and I can have an embark that's half good and half evil, and it's like the evil and good sides are touching along some river or something. So that's been really cool. I'm actually probably going to use this world generation for adventure mode, which comes out in April pretty soon, because it's very, very interesting. It cuts very suddenly from like eyeball tendrils and raining evil mucus to, a beautiful lush wonderland. So anyway, I've been experimenting with these, and part of this world includes the evil place is constantly, all year, all seasons, basically every single day, it is raining a repulsive mucus that causes internal and external blistering. It causes such severe blistering depending on where you are. Now, I gave up my first embark because it was causing such severe blistering that it was even blistering the dwarves' lungs and causing fever to the point that they would drop dead within a few ticks, basically before I could do anything. They would drop dead where they stand, and when I try to even hack in a full heal, because the tokens on the dwarf have been changed to include these syndromes, as soon as I fully heal, they are blistered on every organ, on every surface of their entire body, to the point that they are dying. So we're going to get into this, but blistering really all it does is increase infection chances. It makes these tissues more infectable by other diseases, except in the case of lungs, where if the dwarves' lungs are blistered, they suffocate, and that's what was happening to my dwarves. They were having such severe fever, and in this case, such severe blistering of their lungs that they were dying. It does seem, you'll see in this footage, that the elephants, for some reason, are able to survive the mucus. I have a standing order now. Here's how we survive these embarks now, is I use pathing restrictions, and I say, do not go to the evil side. Nobody goes to the evil side for anything until I figured this out, until I've built roofs and things during the brief points where the blister mucus stops falling. So we figured that out, but of course wild animals wander across, so I've been using them to see how it seems that this mucus rain is actually a little better in this second embark, because it does not cause fever, and it seems to only cause moderate blistering as opposed to complete and total blistering. So this was such an issue. I tried to save the first embark. I asked on the community tab, I said, please, can you help me hack my way out of this with DF Hack? And people were saying, can you maybe wash the dwarves better? Can you figure something out? You shouldn't let them get all mucusy in the first place, which is true. And they were all right, but I wasn't able to save that first embark, so I embarked just down the road, also on a good evil embark split. The mucus seems to be a little less problematic in that it is greatly sickening these elephants that wander through, but it is not dropping them dead. It is not viciously blistering their lungs to the point that they immediately suffocate and die. But so all that really just inspired me. I said, let's talk about some of the fun syndromes and symptoms that exist in Dwarf Fortress. So let's just define our terms as we always do. A syndrome is a token that gets applied to a living thing. It can be resolved in hospital if you have skilled doctors in some cases. Well, let's talk about how they can be applied first. It can be applied if a huge beast, if a forgotten beast breathes on you, or if some kind of crazy creature breathes on you. It can be passed through the wind. It can be passed through weather. Syndromes also include like if a giant cave spider bites you, or any kind of like a helmet snake. We'll actually see footage of a helmet snake here as well. If a venomous creature bites you and injects you with venom, these syndromes are tokens that last for a certain amount of time. Maybe they last for the rest of your life, and they actually have acute symptoms. So that's the other thing we're going to talk about. We're going to talk about symptoms. So syndromes are tokens that get applied to your dwarves, and they induce symptoms which are effects on your dwarves. So full heal will cure the damage to their body in that one tick if you're using DF Hack, and a tick is like one moment of time passage, but the syndrome is a token that remains. So those blisters or whatever will be right back, or the venom or whatever. So a syndrome is a token that gets applied to a living thing, and then the symptoms are the list of often bad, sometimes good. You could, if you're a modder, you could could hypothetically program your own syndrome that makes somebody invincible. But so most of the actual syndromes in Dwarf Fortress are disease-like, so they produce a number of symptoms, and we're going to talk about both of those, common or interesting syndromes and the symptoms associated with that. And once again, so my terrible losing is fun map catastrophe can be used to educate all of yous. All right, but jumping right in, let's talk about some of the most interesting or common just syndromes and symptoms that you might run into and you should be aware of. So depending on the syndrome, depending on the symptom, as I said, there can be acute and there can be chronic symptoms. So I don't think I actually finished saying that, but I thought it in my head. But so a syndrome has a host of symptoms, and then those symptoms in turn can be acute, meaning that they, as soon as you are infected, they have a obvious, a sudden effect, and then chronic means that for the rest of your life you're going to have this symptom. But so let's give a few examples just to give you. So before I even get into that, so here's a few ways that you can get a syndrome in Dwarf Fortress: trailing gas flow, a vapor flow, a dust flow, a solid glob of something infectious, a liquid glob of something infectious, an undirected gas, an undirected vapor, or an undirected dust, as opposed to trailing gas, vapor, or dust. So basically gas, vapor, dust, and globs are the ways that you're going to get. So in this case, these are globs of mucus that are giving my dwarves blisters. But so let's talk about some syndromes. So here's a common one you might run into: a cave spider bite. Being bit by a cave spider. Chronic symptoms are very mild dizziness. It has no short-term symptoms. It has no long-term symptoms. So to clarify, cave spider is very different from a giant cave spider. Let's just compare those two. Those are two different syndromes. So cave spider bite, you get bitten by a cave spider. You don't really notice anything short-term or long-term, but chronically, your dwarf will have dizzy spells for the rest of their life. That's very sad. Oh, so that's another thing that I meant to say. So syndromes, some of them will clear up on their own. Some have to be cured by a doctor, and some cannot be cured at all. So we just talked about a cave spider bite. Now let's talk about a giant cave spider bite. Much more dangerous. Short-term symptom is complete paralysis. And then also, comedically on the wiki, links are all in the description if you want to read more. One of the short-term symptoms listed is being eaten by the giant cave spider. Of course, a spider paralyzes you, it eats you. Long-term symptoms of a giant cave spider bite are none. Not that it really matters, because you will be eaten unless your team comes and saves you. Moving right on. So this is one I didn't know about, but it's very rare and interesting. I have to mention it. Gnome blight. So, gnomes. If you travel up in the mountains, you might see gnomes, which are physiologically different than dwarves. And this will kill them. It has no short-term symptoms. It has no chronic symptoms, but severe systemic necrosis is the result. And if you actually look into more gnome blight, it'll talk about, this is specifically an extract from kobold bulbs that, because the game hasn't actually developed to the point of maliciously injecting, there's no creatures that inject this thing. The only way it's been studied is by spilling it on the ground and then having gnomes walk through it, but it will, by all accounts, kill gnomes. This is also, I realize as I'm reading that this is from version 0.31.25, and we're now on version 50 plus, so this may be an archaic syndrome. But moving right along, you're going to see in this footage that we kill a helmet snake. So a helmet snake venom, as injected when bitten by a helmet snake, causes minor bleeding, short-term, long-term fever, nausea, dizziness, localized swelling, localized oozing, localized bruising, strong pain, intense localized necrosis, and possible loss of limb. So this is very serious. This will mess your dwarf up bad. And this is an example. That's a good list of symptoms. So let's move on to symptoms actually. So list of gnome symptoms per the wiki. So blisters, which that's the main thing that my mucus rain causes and was causing so much issue. I swear, I don't think I got footage, but my first 7 dwarves, so the Imbark was on the good side, but it was an even split, and so the evil side was right next to him, and I guess they were wandering into it. I didn't set the restrictions fast enough, and these guys were having fever and blister to the point that they were dying where they stood before they could even get below ground. But so list of known symptoms: blisters, bleeding, bruising, cough, dizziness, drowsiness, fever, impaired function, nausea, numbness, necrosis, oozing, pain, paralysis, swelling, unconsciousness, and vomiting blood. Now, in this case, if you are interested in this kind of thing and learning more, I would really encourage the wiki, and links will be in the description there. It really opened my mind. This, honestly, if I get more into modding Dwarf Fortress, this is where I'm going to start, because syndromes are so interesting. It turns out that there's something called inorganic syndromes. You can create a token where you define a certain type of rock as having a syndrome, and part of that is you can then define that rock as explosively boiling such that it kind of explodes when it's mined, and it will then infect your dwarves with that syndrome. So you can, this is like, I don't know, I really grok it. I really get it. Like, this kind of token application, studying syndromes has really helped me understand how the token system works in Dwarf Fortress coding. And so I really recommend people check it out. That's all I really have for today. I just want to do a quick video. I'm not even going to do the like and subscribe and comment spiel, except to mention it there, because I really did just want to do a quick video. This blew my mind. I didn't even get a good answer so far. Nothing solved this. If, like, evil weather puts a syndrome on your dwarves, you are stuck with it. You can't hack your way out of it, except to really go in and actually physically mod your files, you know, so it really is. Disease in Dwarf Fortress and the medical system in Dwarf Fortress is really just so fascinating. And so I hope that shed a little light on it. I tried to talk extra loud and fast this time. I'm not sure why. I'm kind of pressed for time tonight. So I hope that it wasn't annoying, and I hope everybody liked it and learned something. And leave me a comment if you've had any experience with, like, a fascinating syndrome. Gnome blight really blew my mind. And honestly, this crazy internal and external blistering thing blew my mind. And it really opened my eyes to how detailed the anatomy of each dwarf is. Because you'll see, I'll include this in the thumbnail and in images and stuff. The list of every single thing that's blistered is, it's really a list of hundreds of things. So every dwarf is a little miracle of code, and they can get really, really sick. And that's all I have to say. Thank you, everybody, for listening tonight.